Hello friends, thank you for joining me again today. My name's Dan, and I've been working all day and not broadcasting. Can you believe it? Let me show you real quickly what I've done so far today. Just some of you who saw me start this painting a week ago Saturday. Get this pointed at the bride and groom. So this painting is finally finished. I'm quite happy with it. There's Brent and Aaron, handsome couple that I think I've captured pretty accurately. So I spent most of the day doing that, and for some reason just didn't work out to broadcast. So I did it all by myself without your help. Can you believe that? Now I am finally back at the project I'm really excited about these days, which is doing big stuff. And most of this painting is finished, at least up to this last layer. I'll be glazing the entire thing again, but I'm not done with this layer yet. All of this is finished pretty much, except for these buildings. So that's what I'm working on right now. And I just started on this big blue building. Now let me see, am I gonna be right in your way? Doggone it, I am. Hang on just a second. Let me try to find a better perch for you guys. Whoops. You're banging into things on the ceiling and banging into things on the floor. Oh boy. The things Rembrandt didn't have to work against. Of course, the only sentence that should have my name and Rembrandt's name in the same sentence would be the sentence, well, he sure ain't no Rembrandt. Lest you think I'm comparing myself. Comparing's all right. Comparing favorably, that would be the height of delusion. But it doesn't keep me from trying to paint better than I can. How about you? Forget trying to paint better than somebody else. Just try to paint better than yourself. That's the challenge all of us are aiming for. Try to paint better than yourself. That keeps you plenty busy right there. Anyway, yeah, but still, Rembrandt never didn't have to work with cameras. What a blessed existence we live in, to have such problems. I'm mixing up a slightly different blue here, just for fun. I was describing to someone this last week, I think it was down in Wilmington where I was for several days, and once again describing that realism, super realism in some respects. Now, and I just did, as I just showed you a few minutes ago, the faces on that wedding portrait, that's super realism. And once you have the basic rudimentary skills of copying, realism isn't really that difficult. Now, excellent realism, by which I mean that's not measuring it by how real it is, but by a number of other factors. The really great realistic painters are among us, if I may forge a new category. Really great realistic. They're great not so much because it's realistic, but because of all the other things that they do to the painting that make it extraordinary. For instance, my good friend David Stickle, look him up, S-T-I-C-K-E-L, David Stickle watercolor, super realistic watercolor. And he's amazing. But it's not just the fact that it's super realistic, which it certainly is, but it's the interesting subject matter, creative angles, and reflection. Reflection is his main trick. And if you go look at his stuff, then you'll see what I mean. Anyway, realism takes a long time. You have to be patient, right? Takes long. It's like doing a jigsaw puzzle. You're not going to be done in 20 minutes. That wouldn't be, I mean, those of us who like jigsaw puzzles, we don't want a jigsaw puzzle that we can do in 20 minutes. We don't, those of us who like jigsaw puzzles, we don't buy the, generally smaller than 1,000 piece, right? I think I'm probably pretty typical in that regard. Anyway, so it takes a while, and realism takes a while. But what is, in my opinion, difficult painting is abstract realism, because every stroke matters. You can't take a mental break, even for a moment. You hear the kids playing in the driveway behind me there, by the way, in case you wonder what those strange sounds are. In fact, that is the biggest challenge of what I call abstract realism, where the strokes, the marks, the abstract elements of design are paramount, are more important than the picture, okay? And when you're doing abstract realism, you can't take a breath away from thinking. You can't relax for a single breath, or you're liable to screw up. In other words, every stroke. In fact, I have a name for the kind of painting that you do when you do take a mental break. For years, I call it painting the barn. Okay, so for me, often, for some reason, I have no idea how this started, but a barn is sort of an archetype of doing a landscape painting, okay? For no good reason, that's just the way it is. When you're doing landscape, you're painting a barn. That really makes sense in North Carolina, where we have these famous old picturesque tobacco barns that people like painting so much. Okay, so to paint the barn, here's what that means. You're painting along, you're painting trees, you're painting grass, you're painting clouds, you're painting a horse and a fence, and you have this big, let's say, red barn. To paint the barn, quote unquote, means to turn your brain off for just a few minutes, because of course you're tired of thinking, because it takes a lot of work to think all the time, like I'm trying to do right now. Every stroke, every single stroke I have to think about, and I think about it mostly with my eyes, not my analytical left brain, but with my intuitive visual right brain. Okay, so you're painting, and you've been painting for a while, so you're getting kind of tired, and you just would love a break. So you get to the red barn, and inwardly, inside your brain, you go, yippee! I don't have to think about this part. You just load up your brush with red paint and proceed to paint the barn. Does that make sense? That's the picture when I say you never, in other words, you never turn off your brain and quote, paint the barn. Which now we do that all the time. Well, I try not to, honestly. I see it having been done. So to paint the barn means to paint mindlessly, like all I have to do now is color. It's closely related to color book painting. You have the lines, and then you just color inside the lines. Okay, so to paint the barn is very similar to coloring book painting. That is to say, painting in the lines, painting inside the lines. Which, of course, is not a good impulse, right? Are you able to see all right? Yeah, pretty much. Let me try to demonstrate what I'm talking about while I do it. Let me make sure that, okay, yeah, we're still in the frame. So I got two fairly small brushes, right? Mixed up with a slightly dirty titanium white. Not pure titanium. Okay, and I have this sort of pyramid shape. It's on the top of this building, very distinctive for all of us Raleigh natives for the last dozen years or so, however long this building's been here. No, 10 years, it's less than. Anyway, it's pyramid shape, made out of like bars of steel. So it's not enclosed. You can see sky through it. So right at the moment, I'm painting we see three of the legs of this four-sided pyramid. Are you with me? And of course, you see that I'm painting them kind of all jittery and broken up, when in fact, in the photograph, they are not jittery and broken up at all. You with me? Why am I painting them jittery and broken up then, to coin a new term? And then at the very top of it, there's this tall shaft, antenna type thing, just straight up white. And once again, I think you can see that. I hope you can. I've painted it in a jittery manner. Iterative is another word that would describe stop and start, Morse code-ish. Dot, dash, dot, 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 dash, dash, dot, 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 dash, 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 dot, dot, dash, dot, dash. Get the idea? I'm just trying to, that's how I'm painting. Dots and dashes. Why? Because if I painted it solid, it would look bad. How's that for a great analytical answer? Do a little bit of palette knife now. Oh, good. I have the right kind of palette knife, actually. So why am I painting it jittery? Why am I painting it Morse code-ish? Because it's more important that the viewer's mind finish the painting. If I finish it for them, for the viewer, for you, you've got nothing to do, and you find it slightly boring. But if in fact I let you turn this into, you could ask the same question, why did I just let my hands do those little non-realistic seizures, little curly cue things? Same reason, because I think it'll look good, because I want your mind to finish the picture, even ignoring, in some cases, the little extraneous things that I've included, put on the canvas, like that mark right there, that mark and that mark. In fact, one of the ways I believe to describe good painting is the viewer's eye is fairly easily able to discern the picture, if you will, what it's a picture of, in spite of quite a high amount of extraneous or non-realistic marks. Okay, so that's the difference between realism and what I call abstract realism, where the abstract marks are more important than the picture. Picture's important, don't get me wrong. And good drawing is very important, but you don't get credit for the good drawing. You just get kicked out of the club. You just kicked out of the game. You just get vetoed if you don't do a good drawing. So you have to do a good drawing, but it doesn't put any points on the board. It just means you're on the field, if I can use that sports analogy. And I'm on a serious quest to figure out how to create and then leave more extraneous marks on the canvas than I'm currently doing. I have not arrived at my final resting place by any means. In fact, just the other day, I dropped in, visited, been wanting to do this for a long time, dropped in on David, I had David LaFell on the brain, Dan Beck. Dan Beck, B-E-C-K, just Google him. So we had a nice visit. He was very kind to me, which is very nice of him. Dan Beck is one of the proverbial big dogs in the American art scene, and he lives in little Wilmington, North Carolina. So I had an afternoon to kill, so I went and dropped in on him unannounced. The reason I'm mentioning him is when I'm talking about painting in a more messy style, oh my goodness. Dan Beck stuff is 10 times more messy than mine is. and I like it. And I was going to say, somebody must like it though, because he's won Old Painters of America, whatever, grand national champion, I think twice, if I'm not mistaken. So that makes him an official card-carrying big dog. And it's very messy. His stuff is messy. So anyway, but I can't copy him. That's a dead-end street. I can be influenced by him. And just dropping by his studio and looking at his paintings in progress will influence me without me even trying. But it's not a matter of copying him or starting to paint like him. That wouldn't work at all. It would be completely lack integrity. So I have to paint like myself. But yeah, I want to paint a messier self. than I'm doing up until this point. Let me stand back now, and I sure hope that thing on top is straight. Yeah, I think it is. It's a little fastidious. So we're gonna anti-fastidious it. This canvas, by the way, that I'm painting on is very rough. After I got started, I thought, oh, I might have stretched this canvas inside out. I'm not sure. It's cotton duck, pretty heavy stuff. I paint on it when I do festivals. And it's very rough. So my scratching like that doesn't have nearly the impact on this canvas that it would, say, on a smoother canvas. In case you wonder, I'm rubbing it pretty hard, but it doesn't have, like I say, quite the impact that it would have if it were a smoother canvas. Just want to make clear, because what I just did could be kind of confusing to you, for me to rub it that hard and it not have much effect. Mixing up now a paler blue. I'm using little tiny bits of liquid here, not so that it's transparent, but just to make the paint flow a little bit easier. And it's also, of course, a fast drying agent, so it'll dry pretty quickly. So then when I come back and do my next glaze, I'll do glazes over the entire canvas, any colors that I want. One glaze, many colors. I shouldn't have any trouble what people call fat over lean, which they shouldn't call it fat over lean. I don't know if you've been, I get that question pretty often. The word, and let me give it to you again, the expression fat over lean is an old-fashioned expression from back in the day, like when my daddy, who was a good painter, pretty much the only medium, and this is a slight exaggeration, but no, pretty much. Unless you're part of some obscure Northern European consortium of painters, I'm exaggerating slightly. The medium you used, if you used a medium in your painting, it was linseed oil, okay, which is a slow dry agent. So the expression fat over lean made sense when everybody was using linseed oil as their medium, go-to medium, because it was a slow. So then it was, yeah, then it made sense. So make sure if you're putting linseed oil on your painting that you do it in the later stages, not in the earlier stages. The real rule, and here's the answer to that question. No, the real rule is not fat over lean. The real rule is slow dry over fast dry. Whoops, I have a crooked line up there. The real thing you have to watch out for is be careful that you don't put fast dry on top of slow dry. Okay, so you want fast dry underneath, slow dry on top. I hope that just totally makes intuitive sense to you. If it doesn't, then you don't intuit the properties of paint very much. You wouldn't want the top surface to dry first and then the stuff underneath to dry second. Can you picture that would be kind of a disaster? Something bad might happen? If you can picture that, if you can understand that without being told it, then you understand how paint works. it's just backwards. You don't want the top drying in while the stuff underneath is still wet, right? Can you picture that? That's just going to be a mess. A huge mess, by the way, not just a subtle. This is not a, I have a painting. One of these days I'm going to show it to you. I kept it, one of my first oil paintings I did 20 years ago. I didn't do that. And when we say cracks, you know, we don't mean like nice, subtle, you know, Renaissance painting, you know, kind of classy, cool looking paint cracks. No, no, no. I mean like Grand Canyon cracks. Okay, so again, so the rule is fast dry underneath, slow dry on top. And how I got into this was I was saying that I'm using little tiny bits of liquid in my paint right now. Little bit so that it dries quickly. Mostly just because I have the viscosity that I want. So I have the thickness or thinness, as the case may be, that I want on my brushes. That's why I'm using it. But it's also convenient because that means that everything I'm putting on now will dry pretty quickly. So anyway, boy, that was a long detour, and I probably didn't need to take it. Oh, you know what? I don't have any terpenoid around here. Okay, so let me just go odorless here for a minute. Michael Carder, C-A-R-D-E-R. Another big dog painter, very generous in his YouTube videos. Michael Carter. Draw Mix Paint is the name of his channel. He strongly advocates against using solvents at all. And it looks to me like a good habit to get it. His habit is a good one. I feel like I'm an old dog, new trick kind of thing. I'm so committed to a different technique. I'm not sure I can change. But anyway, if you're just starting out painting, do what he does. Don't do what I do. What he does is not use solvents. And I think that's like terpenoid or liquid, or terpenoid or any clean Gamsol, odorless turpentine. When I was a kid, my dad used turpentine. Again, that's what you did back in the day. That's what they did back in the day. I'm just doing a little bit of broken color right now. So I'm pretty much done with that building, I think. Yeah, I reserve the right, if you will, to come back, especially after I've done the glaze. I'll come back and do more details, possibly on the building. In the meantime, let's do one more building before I take a break, and I'll probably keep this broadcast reasonably short. And I only see two chats. Hi, Rick, and hi, Bruno. I'm assuming that my chat function is working all right. I'm assuming I'm broadcasting. It always makes me nervous when I don't see any chats. Oh wait, here, let's try that. I know what's happening. Something weird is happening. Give me just a minute. Let me come back in here. Live chats? No. No. Forgive me. Hang on. Sorry about that. Still broadcasting. Sorry, folks. Okay, Warren, thank you. Thank you. Warren says it's working. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And that's quite all right. You guys don't need to leave chats if you don't want to. I'll get over it. I'll cry myself to sleep tonight. Don't worry about it. Don't worry. No, I really. Okay. Oh boy. Less horsing around, more painting, more painting. I'm sorry, and I'm down here where you can't see me, mixing up now some buff, brown, tan colors. Mixing, mixing, mixing titanium white, yellow ochre, and oxide red. Oh, that's way too bright. I just looked at the paintings. I'm mixing up a color for the dark side of the building, right underneath, well, not exactly, this one right here anyway, right in the middle of the screen there, I think. And as you can see, I've got a photograph right here that I'm going from. Hello, Superfood 52. What a great name. So I'm just going to start with this building, and one of the points I want to make is that for me, again, in the over painting stage, which that's what I'm in now. A lot of the work at this stage of the painting process entails matching colors that are already there. If I do the underpainting right, which isn't always the case, of course. Nobody does everything right all the time. But anyway, if I do the underpainting right, then a lot of what I do in this stage is simply match color and then, oh yeah, slightly lighter than what's already there. So that's what you see me doing right now, is I've mixed up a color that's essentially the same. Sorry, laughing at grandchildren. That's essentially the same color that's already there, but just one tick lighter, whatever a tick is. You know, it's not a very scientific measurement. Just a little bit lighter in what's there. And as you can see, I'm not covering up the whole thing at all. That would just be a huge waste. The underpainting is, okay, here's in my world of painting, okay, if you want to paint like me, understand, and I'm not the only one, I would say Richard Schmid and Tibor Nagy, two of the names that I name not infrequently here, share this with me, that the underpainting colors and textures are much more interesting than the overpainting. Okay, now let me define a little bit. Overpainting is, what I'm doing right now, is opaque, or I should say also translucent, okay? That's opaque paint. It's very often applied thinly enough that the result is actually translucent. That's certainly what I'm doing right now, especially because the canvas that I'm working on is so rough that I'm hardly any of these strokes there are filling in the holes in between the threads of the canvas. Do you understand what I mean? Here, let me pick you up. I don't do this too often, but this would be a good time. Let me bring you in really close so that you can see. And hang on, it's going to take just a second to get in focus. There, okay, that's what I want you to see. And sorry about the shadow of my brushes there. So you can see that the threads in the canvas are very pronounced. Now, when I want opaque, of course, then I'll take a big, thick slab of paint and slab it down, slap it on thick, plaster it, as I say. But much of the time, I don't want it that thick. All right, now this is a good moment right here for me to practice what I preach. In architecture especially, you get repeated motifs. It's everywhere. It was up on the blue building. Right now, it's these vertical lines in the painting. And here's what I preach, that whenever you are rendering a highly repeated motif, you must come up with several different techniques for rendering that repetition. You do not want to just, and I've already done almost too many. I should have started before now, but maybe I can rescue it. Let's see if I can. I'm going to go back and modify this just a little bit. So the principle is, the overarching principle is variety. Interesting marks, right? The essence of doing good painting is making interesting marks. And variety is the essence of interestingness. Now, if I could, one of my favorite tricks for this kind of thing would be to put paint down and then scratch it out. But unfortunately, this canvas is so rough that it renders scratching nearly futile. It has very little effect. So now if you just want to stay there, don't go away. I'm going to now add more variety to this repetition. So a repeated motif is just a shape that repeats over and over and over again in the classic principles of design, not to be confused with the elements of the design. Okay, deep breath, here we go. Elements of design are line, shape, value, design, texture, color. There should be 7 of them. I'm not sure I got 7. Line, shape, color, design, texture, that's only 5, so I must be missing one. Those are the elements of design. The principles of design are different things that you can do to the elements. Did you catch that? That's the part. I don't even want to get so technical here that you're going to make me go back and figure out which one I'm missing. Line, shape, color, design, value, texture. And then the reason I'm mentioning that is one of the principles, and the principles of design are things like balance, tension, and one of the good ones to have in mind is rhythm. And this is rather small in this big painting, but there's a lot of rhythm in this painting because architecture has bup, 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 bup. So what I'm doing right now is a good example of what I'm talking about, that when you have a repeated motif, be sure to come up with different ways to render it. So these were all done light paint against a dark background. There were about 3 here that were done with a palette knife. And then over here, I painted the whole area light and then came back and did, instead of painting the light paint on dark, I'm painting dark paint on light. Does that make sense? So at a glance, it all looks the same. But your brain subconsciously, which is your brain, your eye, is amazingly attuned to subtleties, way more than your conscious mind is. And your brain discerns, your eye, the seeing part of your brain, discerns that these were, no, not that they were executed. An artist might pick up on that, but a non-artist would never discern that. But even a non-artist, their brain discerns the subtle differences. I'm now mixing up a slightly lighter brown color so that I can do my normal thing of following up. I put a bunch of brown down, right? And now I've mixed up a lighter, slightly lighter version of that brown and am coming here and doing little bits of it on top of what I just did a few minutes ago. Okay, that's not a principle, that's just a practice. That's just do this, it almost always works. The principle here, if I were to, which I don't usually name, I teach this practice all the time. It's kind of like a best practices, almost always works, almost always looks good. The principle would be something like our eyes enjoy subtlety way more than our brain can actually analyze or process. I am now mixing up a slightly different color. So this is a little bit different from what I normally do. Let me see if it's different enough. It may not be. It's slightly pinker, and I doubt you guys probably can't even see that difference. I can, but it's probably too subtle. I'm gonna leave that now, though. I've messed with it long enough. I'll come back. I've got one more layer on this whole painting. Well, glaze, and then another final edit layer, if you will. But I don't want to do any more to that part of the building, because I fear if I do so, I'll be overworking it. It's okay the way it is for right now. Now, let's move to the part of the building that's on top of this. It's like a lid on top of this building. Need to get this out of the way. All right, I think that's enough. Now, I'm going to come over to this side of the building. Mixing up a lighter color. Because the sun's coming from the left, of course, so this side of these buildings is, of course, lighter. That's probably good enough right there. This building has a particularly extravagant antenna system on top of it, so. I get a workout today, these days, going up and down a ladder. Fortunately, just a step stool here. The last painting I did was, I was literally at a step ladder. and was going up and down quite a bit all day long. Found my legs mysteriously sore at the end of the day. I'm going to go straight to a palette knife right here already. I rarely hold my brush the way you see me holding it right now. And I'm actually doing it just for the sake of variety, for a different stroke. Because I almost always hold it, especially, you probably haven't noticed, well, you've noticed that I paint with two hands, right? And I am right-handed. I didn't used to be ambidextrous, but now I am. I started painting, that's a long story, I've shared it many times, but I started painting with two hands about 10 or 12 years ago. Ironically, even though I'm right-handed, my left hand makes better vertical marks. So when I use my left hand to paint vertical marks, I'm actually not being disciplined. I'm being the opposite. I'm being lazy because I have no idea why. Very strange, because I'm still very much right-handed in all the rest of life. But my left hand does vertical marks better than my right hand. Very strange. Mixing up a darker color. Normally, so I'm going in reverse order. Normally you do darks first and lights second. In other words, I would have been smarter to paint this area, the shadow part, and then the sunny part, but too late, I didn't do it, so I'm just gonna proceed here. Yeah, let's speed things up and paint with two hands at a time, at the same time. And I just did a mess that I'm not crazy about, so. Now I have dark paint on my palette knife. Again, just for variety. Same principle. When you have a highly repeated motif, figure out several different ways to render that repetition, because variety is a high value. This is not pleasant. You know, I say often that the essence of good painting is making interesting marks, right? And that means you have to be able to discern and see and spot which marks are pleasant, which ones are not. And I just had a minute there. I had some marks here that were not nice. They weren't working. So no panic, so I messed it up a little bit and said, let's just keep painting until it is pleasant. And it isn't simply that pleasant marks are more accurate. No, 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 no. It's much more, what's the word I'm looking for? Esoteric would be one word. Much more subtle than that. See, that's likewise. Are you with me? Yeah. It's not particularly pleasant either. Too dark, too hard. All right, that might be okay. Almost finished with this face of this building, and I'll call it quits here this evening. And there's a few chats. Good. I'll come back and look at those later. Warren Moses, I just saw your chat. You did billboards. Wow. My hat is off to you guys. It's a shame, isn't it, that's a lost art. Because the guys that did billboards were true artists, really. My good friend Mike Rooney, who I paint with every year for a week down at the coast, he was a billboard painter, sign painter, billboards and windows and the whole bit. When I was a graphic designer, so back in the mid-'80s, when I first launched out on my own freelancing, I didn't have enough work to just do illustration. So I increased my workload by doing graphic design as well. This is in Texas. And just, the way things go, it's just ironic. I ended up having a couple of billboard guys that I worked for, were some of my steady clients back in the day. And I learned a lot about 14 by 48. That's the size of 14 feet by 48 feet. I still remember 30 years later. It's been 30 years since I designed a billboard. But I learned a lot about that amazing art. Guys actually get up there and paint. Amazing. Now it's all done, of course, with computers. There's a different art. Forgive me for thinking it's not quite as something. Not quite as difficult. Isn't that right, Warren? Working on Photoshop, Illustrator, not quite the same as working with a brush on a ladder 60 feet off the ground. Hang on here, I've got to finish this side of this building, and I'm not quite happy with it right now. I've run out of my titanium. It's as most of you know, it's a fast dry titanium white, alkyd, titanium alkyd oil, which just means it has an alkaline dryer. That's something they add, an alkaline stuff, add to the oil paint to make it dry faster. Anyway, I had to run out, so let's try to knock this out pretty quickly. It's getting a little bit dark. By the way, as you can see, our springtime has turned back into winter again overnight. Gonna be down to freezing tonight and tomorrow night. So we're, like the rest of the country, still waiting for spring to get here permanently. It'll be here for 2 weeks and then it'll be 90 degrees. Listen, I've lived in much hotter parts of the country. Spent 9 years in Texas. The summer of '81, my wife and I were married in 1980. We lived in Central Texas, and we had 100 days in a row over 100 degrees. every day over 100 degrees. Summer of '81 in Central Texas. Then we moved to Minnesota that fall. And that winter they had 100 degrees in a row under freezing in the same year. Isn't that crazy? So we've had both. North Carolina is quite nice and temperate compared to either one of those. All right, I think I'm done enough on this building. So I made a little bit of progress tonight, not a great deal. Still got a ways to go. But that's when you're painting this large, it's just part of the business, I feel like. It's going to take a little longer. Excuse me. So mostly have just these buildings and then the tree and the sky to go. That'll be good. That'll be the lion's share of work done. And then I'll glaze the whole canvas, any colors I want, and do just little bits of touch up here and there. You know, maybe another day of painting. And I hope I'm able to broadcast. Thanks for your company. Let me go back here and see if I've missed some of your chat. I'm sure I have. Let's see if Warren... Warren says, yeah, am I on the camera? No, I'm not. Hang on just a second. Warren, what part of the country do you live in? I'd love to know where did you do your billboard work? Yeah, we're from a 3x5 card reference. That's hilarious. You guys are supermen. Thinker says, how long will you have to wait before you come back and glaze? Not at all. Tomorrow, because I'm using a little bit of liquid almost everywhere. This will be completely dry by tomorrow, and I should be able to glaze it then. Oh, the camera's too close, Vincent. Sorry about that. Yeah, Vincent, I'm sure our winter temperatures are nothing like yours. I am sure. And Alberta bemoans the fact, probably, that automation and technology will one day replace the need for people. 7 to 10 years. Yeah, I think you're optimistic, but... Oh, the back gray building is slightly slanted, Vincent says. Back gray building. This one or this one? This one is a pitched roof. You might be right about that one. You know what, Vincent? I've got a... maybe you're talking about that line. Anyway, I'll check all these out. I will. I've already put a T-square on this building one time, but I need to do it again before I leave it. Thanks for watching, guys. Good to have you on board. Warren from Sand Hills, then Greensboro. Oh, no billboards. Gotcha. Thank you.